All righty, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today is Monday, February 6th, and we're back to talk about OU going to the SEC potentially. Well, potentially, it's going to happen, but it's just a matter of when. And then we're going to also be talking a little bit about Porter Moser and the basketball team and how much of a travesty the season has turned out. And it's been painful to watch. And so I would think a lot of people that are watching this video have some interest in basketball. So we're going to sprinkle in a little basketball talk. So, but first, let's just talk about football. OU, Texas, going to the SEC. There was an article put out by ESPN's Pete Thamel earlier this week on February 3rd about, OU and Texas have been negotiating to the SEC. It seemed like that there was a deal in place until Fox and ESPN couldn't come to terms or an agreement on equal buyouts or whatever for Fox losing some revenue. And basically it seemed to have fizzled out. Brandon, I'm going to start with you. What's your initial takeaway? I mean, I feel like there's a lot to talk about with OU going to the SEC a year early, potentially.
Yeah, so there's a lot for sure. My initial takeaway is I actually don't hate it. It might be unpopular. I know a lot of fans are excited. I'm excited to go to the SEC. I think it's going to be better for the program. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to hurt us to stick in the Big 12 another year. This team I think was really, really good on paper last season and finished 6-7. That's an underperformance, I think. In Venables year one, so I think he can learn from year one. I think we can put together a pretty good season next year because I don't think next year is going to be quite as good as you, Brum. I'm more in the hose area, 8-4, 9-3. So I think if you go 2 seasons, 2 full recruiting cycles, then you move into SEC year one with JA at QB1. I think that's when you finally start to pick up some real steam, and we can start to legitimately compete to play in the big games that we want to play in. So I actually don't hate sticking back in the Big 12 another year.
It would also probably be favorable for playoff seeding because the expansions in 2024, Big 12 presumably might be easier to compete in and be one of the 2 or 3 spots that the conference would get in. So, I guess there's an upside. It really just, I don't think it's over. Since it is up to the networks, I'm sure that the conference and the schools will be pushing them to figure something out over the next few months. If it's not done by late summer, then I would believe it, just because at that point, it would be impossible to try to get everything worked out more than likely for all the sports, unless they're just going to try to move football first, which is possible, but doesn't seem realistic given everything that goes into moving a conference and all your teams and trying to get everything scheduled out for spring sports, winter sports, getting everything figured out. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I was always on the 2025 bandwagon. It was actually an hour before that article was released and the news came out that our video released, and I was feeling confident that it would happen in 2024. So I'm just going to stop guessing and stick to 2025. But it's going to it really doesn't matter when we move, because the move is going to happen no matter what. And maybe the networks will figure it out. And if not, then we can at least play Bedlam, 2 more times, potentially, assuming that we would get Oklahoma State scheduled in our last year in the Big 12. But we'll see. It does stink because we could have played Georgia Georgia and Tennessee one more time before going into the SEC. It could have been measuring sticks for where we are compared to where the best teams in that in the SEC are, but not a huge deal, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I just looked up. The SEC football schedule was released September 20th of 2022. So it seems like that mid to late September is typically when the SEC releases their football schedule. So you're right, by late summer, early fall. I mean, if OU hasn't made the jump yet, you would think it's just going to be 2025. I agree, Brandon. I think it's good. You need more time. This program is on the come up. I mean, I don't know if did you guys see the video from Joel Klatt at all, talking about the arrows up
I
on
did.
Oklahoma.
I did.
And he pointed it out, and we've been talking about it, that this is the best class that OU's had since 2005, statistically speaking, anyway. And, it's nice that a national analyst is finally pointing this out and realizing that not everything's doom and gloom. If you listen to Colin Coward, he would have said that Brent Venables should have been fired after this year. But in reality, you give him a couple years, in the long run, he's going to be, this program's going to be better for it. But I do think that Oklahoma stands to benefit for staying till 2025. I'm curious why. I wonder if it's more Texas pushing it. And I also think that ESPN's pushing it as well. They want to get rid of that Longhorn network. That Longhorn network is a money pit, and they are losing money like crazy. And I think ESPN is pushing this and trying to get rid of that horrible network. And I don't blame them. I mean, who watches that
Garbage.
horrible show?
Garbage. Texas fans don't even watch the Longhorn Network.
No, obviously. I mean, they're losing money on it left and right. And then it makes you wonder that the reason why the Big 12 didn't release their schedule, is it because they've been negotiating?
100%. And something else that I guess if you kind of look at it from the pessimistic perspective or Colin Coward's perspective, is if Brent Venables really isn't the head coach that can produce wins at Oklahoma, we'd be heading into the SEC more than likely with a brand new head coach. And it could be Levy, it could be someone that's not on staff currently. Kind of gives Joe Castiglione a feel out period. Like, you got 3 years, Brent Venables, to figure out if you can win for this program. We assume he can, because his track record as a defensive coordinator shows that he's a winner, but head coaching is a different beast, and he'll have to do it all in the Big 12 with how it looks like.
He's just got to have time to get adjusted to head coaching, and the wins will come. I'm not worried about that. I want to go back to your first point about having the opportunity to play Bedlam a couple more years. That, to me, was the first takeaway of excitement, because we get to play them in Norman at least one more time before we make the jump, which is fun, because this year it's obviously in Stillwater. And then we get the chance to welcome teams like Cincinnati, maybe, or go on the road to Central Florida. We have another opportunity to go to some fun games in the Big 12. With this being extended, I think that's another fun thing. Just the OSU game for sure. Like, having one more year of that in Norman is going to be a blast, because I'm going to miss the hell out of that game. We've talked about it a bunch of times, even with the move to the SEC. I wish we could schedule that team as our fluff game in week 9, because I hate them so hard. That's the most fun game to go to live, I think. So as long as we can prolong that, I'm good with it.
And I mean, OSU needs to take care of and open up their schedule, because obviously OU wants to schedule them. And I totally agree. And I think once OSU realizes after a couple years, hey, we kind of need that game. That's a money generating machine, and the state wants it and everyone else wants it. So I think it'll come back relatively soon, and they're going to make it happen. My question for you guys is, do you think that if Oklahoma, I'm trying to say is, do you think Oklahoma could come into the SEC in 2025 and win the SEC with Jackson Arnold at the helm?
No. And I hate to say no, because I'm always super like, fuck yeah, rah, rah, hoo, hoo. But I don't see it that quickly. I think,
unless that Chinese balloon comes back and then somehow just hovers over Athens and keeps that little bubble around them and makes them a non-existent football program, I don't see that happening.
Hey, Georgia can fall off. They're gonna suck at quarterback. If it's Brock Vandagriff, he's not it. Clearly he's not it.
Stetson Bennett wasn't an amazing quarterback, and that didn't matter because they still have
old.
They're going to have one of the best defenses in the country for the next probably 5 years at least, just looking at their recruiting.
They're going to take a significant drop, I think. And that's significant, is going from back-to-back national champions this year, running away with it, to, I think, being a 2 or 3 loss team. I think they're still going to be good. I agree. That defense is good, but they're in trouble at the most important position on the field with Stetson Bennett's departure.
So let's back up. I shouldn't have asked 2025. So if OU stays in the Big 12 in 2024, what do you think OU's record is? And do they win a Big 12 championship? And and do you think they go play in the playoffs in 2024? Let's start there. If they stay in the Big 12,
Yes.
Yes.
yeah, yes to everything.
Yes.
Playoffs,
Yes.
Big 12
Yes,
It'll be
championship.
Big 12. And in a perfect world, Oklahoma is a top 4 seed, or at least one of the higher seeds. Maybe not even a top 4 seed, because top 4 seeds get a bye in the expanded playoff world. So just the top between 8 and 5. And we normally get to host one of the first ever playoff games at home. That'd be pretty fun to go to.
Or if you win the Big 12, you would have a bye.
Yeah, or that.
Yes. I think I would actually be I'll go as far as say I would be shocked if we don't win one in 2024 if we're still in that conference. I think that things will be clicking by 2024.
So
You put back-to-back top 5 recruiting classes, put it all together. My guy Jaden Rowe will be on the field at that point in time. Jackson Arnold will be balling. That's the year, but that things start clicking.
So, okay, is OU going 12-0 in the regular season and then 13-0 in the Big 12 championship, or do they drop a game?
Always drop a game. Never.
That was a Lincoln thing, though.
That's an everyone thing.
It's not an everyone thing. Georgia just went undefeated.
Except for Georgia. Look at even TCU. They were undefeated in the regular season and dropped the Big 12.
Okay, so you think 11? 11.
Has Clemson ever gone undefeated?
I think the year they had Trevor, they might have, or was it maybe Deshaun Watson's year when they beat Alabama? They might have, but
undefeated things happen. I think there's a possibility we go undefeated. I'll say undefeated rare. Since Ho said no. It's rare, but
I think OU would best case scenario go 11-1. I think they would drop a game somewhere.
Going undefeated is hard, but
so okay, 11-1.
We're gonna play K-State again, and being in the Big 12, we're guaranteed to play Kansas State.
We don't play Kansas State this season.
Well, next year we probably will.
Next year we probably like in 24.
So next year we might. Also, I think this year we really lucked out with the road games, fellas. We get to go if we wanted to as fans. I want to go to one of the two. The game at Brigham Young or the game at Cincinnati. I think as far as road games go, we got the two of the most fun ones. I think for the schedule, just random. So do I, and that's actually on Jerry's birthday. We're going to see if you guys wanted to go to that at some point, but that's for a later conversation.
Yeah, no, that'd be a fun one. But so okay, 11-1, OU wins the Big 12 title, and then is it a national championship in 2024 potentially, or does OU lose in 24 somewhere?
I don't know. Fun. That's tough to say because of the expansion. I think we're going to see more situations like we do in the college basketball tournament, where you're going to see much closer games, upsets happening in tournaments where just more than likely, in today's world, like TCU and Michigan they were matched up pretty well. I think this year's semifinals were the best ones, and Ohio State had an argument to be a top 3 seed.
The thing about the college football playoff is the teams who are 12. It's 12 teams, right? That's in the expansion. The number 12 seed or whatever will never have a chance. 11 will never have a chance. 10 will never have a chance. 9 will never have a chance. 8 will never have a chance. 7 will never have a chance. I think 6 is your best chance. No, dude, the number 12 team is going to be. This is the reason that we've had this debate, and I think 12 is too much. I think 6 is perfect because 12 you're going to start letting in some teams that really don't belong there. They're going to be 3 lost teams, and they're going to get smoked. It won't be competitive. There will be no upsets. I think in the college football playoff as far as.
You can't.
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
The 12th seed this year was an 11 or a. So it says 11-3. It was USC, and they would have played Alabama.
They would have got boat raced.
Yeah, but you would get to see Alabama versus Caleb Williams. Like that'd be a fun and entertaining game to watch.
It'll make
Florida State would have
USC
played Tennessee.
Will not win.
2 huge brands. Utah versus Penn State.
Florida State beat a down year Oklahoma by like a point, and you guys were sucking them off.
Yeah, but Tennessee would have.
They will not compete.
Tennessee would boat race them. Yeah, but Tennessee would have been in the playoffs, which if it wasn't for Hendon Hooker's injury, they more than likely would have been in this year. Like, you would get to see matchups that you would rarely see, and they would probably be pretty competitive. Like, this year's Alabama team wasn't as good as you're making them out to be, and I know you missed out a lot of the season, but
yeah, I mean, I understand
they were rough to watch sometimes. And
but Florida State is not beating anybody in the playoff.
I think they would have. Tennessee's defense was not very good this year, and it would have been just a shootout all game.
Brandon, I don't agree with you that saying that it would never happen, but I think it'll happen once every 3 to 4 years, where like a low seed might win a game or two. But I don't really see a number 10 seed winning a national championship.
That's what I'm saying. It won't happen. Like, as far as like just the game goes in general, because the college basketball tournament upsets happen because I think just it's easier to upset somebody in basketball just with the flow of the game, just shots falling. It's a faster paced game. It's easier to upset people. In football, especially in college football, it's just harder to do.
The only low seed in the current format of the college football playoffs that won the national championship was Alabama when we couldn't beat Georgia. For the most part, the low seeds never win, even in a 14 playoff. So you're essentially vouching for the BCS format.
No, the 14 playoff. 6 is the right way to do it. You need to reward all 5.
Yeah, but you're saying that low seeds would never win. Low seeds don't win now.
Low seeds will win. Low seeds have won.
Alabama one time.
They did it. They showed it was.
Would you consider that a miracle? It was Alabama.
No, they're good. But what I'm saying, and Brum's borderline agreeing with me without saying it, is the 10 seeds are never going to win this shit. It's a waste of time.
But the first
6
round
is where it
games
needs to be.
Fun. The first round games would be entertaining.
I guess.
I would agree with.
OU should be a playoff team every year, I think, moving forward with 12-team playoff.
So here's my question: is if OU goes to the SEC in 2024, where does OU finish in the SEC? We already said 11-1, winning the Big 12. You go to the SEC, where are you at?
Middle of the pack.
I don't think middle of the pack. I don't agree with that.
That means you're at least as good. Let's just say we're never going to be as good as Georgia in the next 5 years. Let's just assume the worst case, or like best for Georgia, because they're back-to-back champions. They're number 1. Alabama, who knows when Nick Saban's going to retire? Probably never. That guy's going to die on the field. Going to be number 2. Tennessee's still going to exist, assuming that they can keep up what they did this year. LSU's there. Let's see. Then they'll have. I mean, I don't think Mississippi State will be there. We'll still be playing Texas.
Right? You mentioned the 4 teams that I think have a chance to be always there. Alabama's always going to be there as long as Old St. Nick is coaching. I 100% agree with you.
I guess I'm sorry.
And I even think that Georgia is going to be good. I do agree with you. I think you're way too high on them over a 5-year time frame. I think this season they're going to have a substantial drop. It's going to happen. They're playing with Brock Vandagriff or who the hell knows at quarterback. They're going to have a substantial drop, I think. I don't think there's any reason why by 2024 OU and Georgia won't be on a same level in the SEC. Like, genuinely, I don't see any reason why we couldn't.
Yeah. Jose, you were talking about the low seed has never won the national championship outside of Alabama. Don't forget Cardale Jones and Ohio State.
Yeah, 4 seed, boat race Alabama in the first game. Zeke Elliott ran wild. Cardale, he didn't come there to play school. Only came there for the college football playoff, balled out.
So, okay, going back to this discussion, I mean, I'm going to say I don't think OU wins the SEC in 24, but I think they're a top 3 finisher overall in the SEC.
I agree with you there too. Because Host said middle of the pack, and I think that's way too low because you mentioned 4 teams, and I agree. I'll give you those 4 teams as teams that could potentially. So, assuming we finish worse than all 4 of those, which I don't think would be the case, then yes, we're middle of the pack. But I think that wasn't LSU like bad this season?
10-4. They dropped some really bad games, but they also beat some teams they probably shouldn't have if you looked at their losses.
I don't know. If we're worse than all 4 of those teams, yes, but I don't see that being the case.
Yeah, I don't think OU wins the SEC, but I do think that OU's in the top top 3, and I think they get a playoff spot because you're in the SEC and you have 12 spots to give. And, when you're playing in the best conference, you're going to have the end of the day teams.
At the end of the day, if Jackson Arnold is who we think he's going to be, then OU will be right there in the SEC. And I think he is that guy.
Best case scenario, we are a top 3 team in the SEC at that time. I'm just looking at it like more than likely.
What is your timeline for these top 3 finishes then?
I don't think it would be year 1, because year 1 is going to be just similar like this year. Adjustments to travel, to coaching against this type of physicality. Like, I think there will be an adjustment period in the first year of the SEC, maybe year 2. And that would be Jackson's last year in college football, potentially?
Yeah.
Assuming that we moved in 2024, I think that would be Jackson's last year.
Yeah, I don't know. And what's also nice, either way, now that OU's recruiting 2024 and 25 kids, what they're going to be able to say is regardless of when they leave, you're going to be playing in the SEC for a good chunk of your college career, and especially the 25 kids. I mean, you're going to be playing in the SEC. 24, you might be a year short, but you're redshirting.
If we can keep recruiting defensively like we have been, which I don't think there's any reason that drops off, our defense will be just as good as some of these top tier teams. I think that by year 1 or 2 in the SEC, we're right there with anybody.
Yeah.
That's why we hired Brent Venables. He's the perfect guy for this job.
Yeah. Regardless, I don't see Oklahoma winning a national championship maybe in 24. I don't see it in 24, but I really see where 25 is when it can really start to open up, like truly being a yearly contender every, year in, year out. I think 25 is when that happens.
This year it's going to sound ridiculous, and I understand it. I understand that before I say it. This year might be their best shot. Because for the most part, the powerhouses are all having to replace their quarterbacks and are losing significant talent on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, that is true, and you're bringing Dylan Gabriel back.
I think a big jump is due. I think it's more than 9-3. I think it's 9-3. Kind of like I agree with you as far as that goes for the season. We've talked about it over text. I think 9-3 is the move.
Like they have to figure out all those like game whoopsies and kind of start making their wins look really good, so that in case they do drop one, they shouldn't. Like, you're in the playoffs regardless, but they have to be 11-1.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, football season's going to be here before we know it. So, anyway, let's move on.
We should do that more often. You guys want to podcast more often?
Yeah, we should podcast more often. You'll be able to join us more often here soon too. So let's move on to a topic that we don't talk about a whole lot, is basketball. OU has fallen to 9th in the Big 12 at 12-11, 2-8 in conference play. They are 1-5 in their last 6 games, 2-6 in their last 8, and it's not been great. Let's just say that. Oklahoma started the year out of conference. They were playing really well. They played Arkansas tough, who at the time Arkansas was a higher ranked team, but they went out and beat Seton Hall. They went and beat Florida. And then you get into the Big 12, and obviously the Big 12 is one of the best conferences in the country, and they're flopping. And then they come out and beat the number 2 team in the country and mop the floor with them, which made no sense, but I mean, it was great to beat Alabama the way they did. My question for you, Jose, do you think people are starting to talk about it? Do you think Porter Moser is the right guy for the job? It seems like the seat is not hot, but it's starting to get a little warm.
Yeah, if he has another season like this next year, he will more than likely be gone. I think the issue is, and we talked about it a little bit before we started recording, for the most part, he's had a major turnover both years he's been with the program. after Lon left, a lot of those guys left the program either because of graduation or they transferred, and he had to replace pretty much everyone. This year, I think he has 4 returning players, and then the rest of the roster had turnover. He just needs to find a way to at least keep a core group of players, because it was Jacob Groves, like, he's not a core guy. He's a guy on the roster, but he's not a core guy. Bijan Cortez, I think you can kind of put him in a core situation. Tanner Groves, kind of a core guy, but he's for some reason not showing up every game this year. You just don't have I don't know, maybe it's the brand. Recruiting has gotten a little easier, but it's tough being that basketball is not Oklahoma's sport, and NIL is also a part of basketball, and I would say maybe even more so when it comes to some of these big time guys, because you've had like social media accounts and different platforms that hype up some of these players, where it's tough to get in on their recruitment if you're not in super early, or if you don't have a relationship with them, and Porter's having to do some catching up in that front. I think he just needs to, if he can retain all the young guys that he has on the team, the next year should improve. But yeah, this year's is a dumpster fire.
This year absolutely sucks. They go from beating the shit out of Alabama, like you talked about, to then getting boat race out of the arena. They started the season off well, as you mentioned, and then even some of the losses they had this season, they were right there to the end. They should have beat Kansas. I think the referees handed that game to Kansas. That game was poorly officiated, I think, to say the least. They shot 31 free throws in the second half alone. That's crazy. But I think Hose hit it on the head with his first point. Is he had to rebuild twice essentially, and I think two players this year, and EJ Harkless and Moser Gibson, left, and I don't think anybody really saw that coming. So he really had to start from scratch. He did really well in the portal, hitting on Grant Sherfield. The answer to your question, to me, I think is still yes. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still above 500 in the toughest conference in basketball. I think the basketball team needs to move to the SEC really badly. It's going to get easier for them from there. But here's the thing with Porter Moser. He did not have his first winning season at Loyola until year 4. And then we saw what he did at Loyola. Took them to the Final Four, Elite Eight, very, very deep tournament runs. Unfortunately for him, like you guys both said, he's not going to have that kind of patience at Oklahoma. I think if he doesn't produce next season, he's not going to have a chance. And it sucks for him because he had to start over twice, essentially.
I still think he's our guy, and I think Joe Castiglione is great about this, where he will stand by their side and stand up for them probably longer than some athletic directors would at other schools. Joe Castiglione's track record and reputation buys him another year, and if he truly believes in him, I think the boosters and the board members will trust him and let him go for another year. I mean, when you look at the schedule, they lost to Sam Houston in a stinker game 1 by a point. They lost to Villanova by 4, lost to Arkansas by 10. That one was kind of a little bit of a bigger loss. But they lost by 1 point to Texas, 3 points to Iowa State, 4 points to Kansas, which they should have beat Kansas. And then they got beat pretty good by Oklahoma State, lost a nail biter to Baylor, where they just broke down and they forgot how to play. And then the last 3 out of the 4 games have been horrible. I think part of the problem. Do what?
No, I mean, I was just 100% agree with you. Like, prior to these last 3 games, they've been in every single game, and should have won some of them. Me and Hose were at the Texas game. No reason that they couldn't have won that game. You just mentioned the Kansas game too. They got screwed against Kansas.
Yeah, and so it does look bad. In the last 3 conference games, OU has emptied their bench, towards the end of the game because they're getting beat so bad. And I get that it's not a great look, but when you look at the roster, and the Groves brothers are going to be gone. You've got another year of Grant Sherfield because he's got the COVID year, assuming he doesn't go to the NBA or Europe or wherever. And then I believe Jalen Hill also has another year. But then you look at Milos Uzon, he's pretty good. Otega Owaya, I forget how to say it. Otega, Oweh. His last name.
I think it's Oweh. His brother plays for the Ravens.
Yeah, OA. You've got some younger guys. CJ Noland is pretty solid too. You could have some core guys there, bring in a few transfers, and I think Porter will have a better year. I think this team has lost confidence, even though they came out and beat Alabama by 20 something points. I think they're exhausted. They've lost confidence. But here's the great thing about this: they're 12-11 right now. In the last 8 games, 7 of the last 8 are against top 15 teams in the country.
So you're saying there's a chance?
If OU goes out and somehow, and I'm not saying that they're going to, but if OU goes out and wins if they go 4-4 in this stretch, and then they go in the Big 12 tournament, they win a game or two, they're probably going to make the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a chance.
And that
I would say
happens,
it's
we
like
should give away tickets because that's fucking
like a-
cool.
It's like I was about to say a snowball shot in hell, which that probably wouldn't do very well, but there's a chance.
Yeah, and you look at where they're playing. They're playing at Baylor, probably not going to end well. They're hosting Kansas on Wednesday night. No, actually, excuse me, that's Saturday. Saturday during the day. So we've been a part of some upsets whenever we were in school, where we beat Kansas on a Saturday. We host Kansas State on the 14th on Valentine's on Tuesday. Then we go on the road at Texas the following weekend, and it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. You host Texas Tech. You have to beat Texas Tech. Go on the road at Iowa State. Don't like our odds. Go on the road at Kansas State. Don't like our odds. And then you host TCU. So you've got a handful of games against good teams at home and one bad team at home. Can you beat Kansas, Kansas State, Texas Tech, and TCU at home? Can you do it?
This is so negative. Let's do it. Let's beat them. I saw a tweet today, though, that I thought was pretty funny, and I forget who tweeted it, otherwise I would give them credit, but I saw it on the Two Plane Sports account going to the feed. Someone said that you can't get hurt by OU men's basketball if you don't watch at OU men's basketball. It's pretty solid.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is there's a chance. And if OU wins 4 games, they're going to have enough of a resume and maybe one Big 12 tournament game win. They're gonna have a chance. But I also don't want people to forget that last year OU made a run in the Big 12 tournament and went to the championship game.
They got hosed last year. They should have been a tournament team last year.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is Porter I mean, Porter's 1 year removed from that. When was the last time we played for a Big 12 championship title in basketball? Buddy Hield?
Definitely not Trey Young's here.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Did Buddy Hield?
I hate that. Hose is the only Oklahoma fan that hates Trae Young. It boggles my mind.
Because he's so talented, but he shorted himself in college.
Took us to the tournament.
And lost in the first round.
Rhode Island was balling.
Rhode Island was balling.
Every NBA team should just find who was on that Rhode Island team and sign them to a one-day contract when they play the Hawks then.
I think it was Rhode Island. I was watching that at Gaylord College.
Oh, Jose, you love Trae Young, don't you?
He's a very talented basketball player, but my recollection, he would have a really, really good first half, distribute the ball, be a good shooter, take good, smart shots, and then second half comes around and he says, it's fucking 5-on-1, boys. You're just warm bodies that have to exist on the court with me. And just chunks it up from half court.
I mean,
it was so frustrating.
We've done that with Brandon, where he just calls out play 4, and then the ball just flies from half court.
Just run the half court shot. It's efficient basketball.
Yes. So anyway, I don't know. All I'm saying is I think Porter needs another year or two. He gets a good core going. He could go on a run here, and then everyone forgets about this. So it's just been a rough 3 out of 4 last games. It's just been really bad. So
We'll turn it around.
They just need a killer.
All right.
That's the thing you need in basketball. If you can find your killer, you're going to be pretty good.
I think Grant Sherfield just needs a second threat on offense. He's your really only bucket getter, I think. You have to get a bucket. Jalen Hill's pretty good, but like Grant Sherfield's the only guy I think that can really consistently create his own shot.
Yeah.
Maybe they should
True.
call up Josh Giddey. He still has eligibility left.
He seems to be a
Big
big
OU
OU
guy.
basketball fan too. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Can he do both?
all
Is
right.
that legal?
We'll see.
We'll see. All right, Brandon. What are your final thoughts, or what's the individual challenge?
Okay, so here's the deal, guys. I've been bowling every single weekend here. It gets me through the week. I focus on bowling. I just like fuck only 5 more days till bowling. I am falling in love with bowling. Today I threw my best game in a while. I threw a 155. I'm consistently like around 140, 150 now. So I got 155 today. I was feeling pretty good. So I was thinking it could be fun, shits and gigs, sometime March, April, whatever. If we hosted like a 2 Plane Sports bowling night. So the individual challenge is if you bowl or if you don't bowl, whatever. I think we've all bowled a little bit. Are you good? What is your bowling score? What's your best score ever? I know Brun's probably like a 60. Hose is like a 50. They're horrible. But I think if we hosted a 2 Plane Sports bowling night at some lanes in Tulsa, in the Tulsa area, drink some beers, throw some balls at pins, that could be electric. So talk about your bowling game.
I'm curious to see. And how many people are in the Tulsa area? I guess that's another component of it. So, all right. I'm curious to see. I don't know. I don't think I've ever even bowled a 150. I think I'm in the 130, give or take, is my best game, right around there.
I flirted with the 300 once or twice in my life.
I want to say that's absolutely not true.
I was a few pins away, but it's close enough.
A couple hundred pins away.
Flirted with it.
Flirted with it. True. So
a third of the way there.
all right. So if you made it this far, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And do Brandon's any video challenge. And remember, when you're already subscribed, when you comment and you like on the video, it helps us out a lot. And we will catch you guys Wednesday.